Hi everyone, it's James Braithwaite here, physiotherapist at Braithwaite Physiotherapy in Toronto, and today in our video presentation I'm going to talk a little bit about a fascinating piece of research I read last week surrounding walks. And I've talked about walks before and how important I feel they are for how you present yourself to the world. Having a good walk makes you look better to people. But did you also know that research is now showing that it also makes you less perceived as vulnerable to attack from, say, like a mugger? So let me tell you about the research that I read that will explain this a little bit. So a group of researchers out of New Zealand published in the Journal of Behavioral Psychology, and I'll have some links to the study in the notes down below. What they did was they did a point light analysis of different walks, people walking. And what a point light analysis is where they put those reflective balls on joint centers, and then using a computer software package, they film people moving, and what you end up with is a wireframe animation of that movement on a computer screen. You've probably seen that on television where they have the balls on people and the computer captures that movement. It's how they animate video games and that type of thing. So they did this motion capture of different walks, and then they took those animations and showed them to convicted violent criminals and asked them to rate on a standardized scale, and yes, there are standardized scales for these things, how easy that walk would be to mug, how vulnerable that person might be to be an easy mark. And the walks that got the highest ratings were then subjected to a mechanical analysis, and what came out of that analysis was a set of features of walk that would make someone more vulnerable to attack. And the features, which I want you to think about before I start talking about this, I take 5 seconds to think about what might make a walk more vulnerable to attack. That's 5 seconds. And here they are. So the first feature is speed. So the faster you walk, the stronger you are, or perceived to be at least, and the slower you walk, the more vulnerable you're perceived to be by violent criminals. The second feature that goes along with speed, though, is stride length. So small stride length perceived as being vulnerable, whereas larger stride length perceived as being stronger, right? So there's something to keep in mind. Another feature that I talk about all the time as a component of a good walk is arm swing, right? So weak walk, no arm swing. Stronger walk, arm swing, right? So that is an important component of any walk, and the thing that goes hand in hand with arm swing that was also identified as being something that would make a walk look stronger is counter body rotation, right? So your trunk should rotate opposite to your pelvis, so it should look like this, right? Versus this, which is perceived as being more vulnerable, right? So counter body rotation. And last but not least, ankle range of motion. So people who have a nice range of motion at their ankle as they bring their leg through swing were perceived as being stronger. So what that looks like is this. So nice ankle range of motion, right? Versus a smaller ankle range of motion. So you might have, say, a steppage gait like this, or a shuffling foot like this. Those were perceived as being more vulnerable to attack, weaker walks. So when you put all these things together, the speed, the stride length, the arm swing, and the counter body movement, and the nice range of motion at your ankle for toe clearance, all these things come together to form what I've talked about so many times previously, and that's just a confident looking walk. So you end up with this, right? That's a nice looking walk. And not only, as I always talk about, does that help you look good to the people that you meet, but it also helps you, it turns out, be protected against potential attack from a violent criminal, which is always nice, right? And I think it also has interesting implications for how we view self-defense. I mean, should we be teaching ourselves jujitsu, which is nice, or should we be avoiding being perceived as weak and attackable in the first place by presenting ourselves with confidence? And I think that presenting ourselves with confidence is probably the easier way to go. As Mr. Miyagi said in Karate Kid 2, Daniel-san, best way, block punch, no be there, right? And just as an aside, people often ask me, well, I try to introduce these changes into my walk, but it feels so funny. It feels goofy to me. It's not my normal. And I feel like if I introduce these changes to my walk, I won't keep them because I won't want to, I won't be able to, I'll forget to do them, and then I won't be able to reintroduce them into my walk. And that's totally a normal response. Anytime you try to change a physical habit, it feels goofy to you, but it only feels goofy to you. To everyone else, it just looks normal, right? It's not your normal, so it's strange to you. And the best advice that I can give is to just keep at it, knowing that it only feels goofy to you and doesn't look goofy to anyone else. One of the things that I like to do, and I've talked about this before, this will tell you the kind of narcissist that I am, is when I walk down the street, if I'm walking by a store front window, I will look in that window and check my posture, check my walking style. So you'll see me, if you see me in the street, just check me out. I'll be pulling one of these as I walk by a storefront. So do that, check in on yourself, stop when you're in front of a mirror, look at your posture, look at the way that you're holding yourself. Is it a strong, confident, presentation, or is it maybe a little bit weaker, and could it use some improvement? The other thing I would also advise you to do if you're trying to introduce changes into any kind of physical patterning is do one thing at a time, right? So we talked about ankle range of motion, arm swing, counter body movement, speed, and stride length. Pick one to start with and go with it. Say, you know what, today I'm going to introduce an arm swing, because a lot of people don't arm swing, so make that your one, right? I'm going to introduce an arm swing to my walk, and I'm not going to worry about those other things. I'm only going to worry about arm swing. I'm going to do that for 2 weeks. When I'm 100% comfortable with arm swing, and that means that I'm not thinking about it anymore, I just arm swing without having to be conscious of it, then you introduce something else. Make it one thing at a time, and over a period of 5 weeks, you can really change the way that you present yourself. Like with any good life habit that's worthwhile, small baby steps get you there. It's not a giant sort of quantum leap that happens. It's small, steady, dedicated, incremental change. So, food for thought for you today. If you have any questions, you know I'm always happy to answer emails. I do answer emails that people send along, so keep me informed of what your concerns or what you're thinking. Or if you have a thought about walking and making your walk look stronger, let me know about it. James Braithwaite, Braithwaite Physiotherapy.